When did he get old the first time?
He got old when the Ribono Shalom, when he got old, right before.
Ravam Zakin Baba Yamim.
Right,
Well,
right. But he didn't die till he was 175, right? Then he got old again.
but when? At what time? At what point in his life did he age? When did Avram Avinu daven that he
When he
should
was
age?
100, it says Avram,
Well, yeah,
or
but
99.
he started to age when people confused him with Yitzchak.
Yeah,
So if Yitzchak was born when he was 100, he must have been 120 when he complained, because Yitzchak had to have been
right,
old, otherwise
right,
there wouldn't have been
right.
that confusion.
But
So when
it
he was
said that he
120,
was
he
old.
told Hashem, "I want the age."
It says he was old by 100. It says
He
Avram,
was old, but he didn't age. He was a zokin, but he didn't have zikna.
So what does that mean then? Well, he wasn't old
He looked like a young man. He looked like he was a 20-year-old.
But he wasn't. If you live to 180, you don't really age at you're not. You don't look. It's middle age. 100 is middle age.
Is that how it works? It's like relative.
Yeah.
But 120, at 120, at 125, he still wasn't aging. So I guess at that point, to listen, Hashem, you got to age me a little bit. And ever since then, everybody's fighting old age.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, Dr. Gemara. Dar hamabel ein lahem chelak le'olam haba. The dar hamabel does not have a chelak in olam haba. Vein ein bin bedin. Like we learned a while ago that by Chisa Mesim, everybody wakes up, and then Hashem paskins on everybody and punishes them. So the people of the Mabel, the people of the Dar Mabel, although they don't have Olam Haba, they don't stand din either. Now, nobody understands exactly what's going to happen, but from the tefillah that we say on Shabbos, that's where we sort of have an idea of what's going on. So it says, then so you know there's an Olam Hazeh and there's an Olam Haba. And then we say, so there's four things that happen, and it's not clear exactly what happens when. But for Mar Gemara, it sounds like there's Tchias HaMesim, and there's the Olam Haba, and then there's Tchias HaMesim. So it's a little bit unclear how it works. Anyway, Shenemar, it says, Lo yadun ruchi ba'adam lo olam. So we darshan loy din v'loy ruach. Sad they won't have din, and sad they will not have ruach, they won't live ba'olam haba. Dor haflaga. Ein lam chelak l'olam haba. They don't either have a chelak l'olam haba. Shenemar v'yafas Hashem oisam me'al p'nei koloris. Kodesh Baruch Hu spread them all around. And it says again, Uchsivim misham hafitzim. So we darshan the two lashons of Vayafetz is Vayafetz Hashem B'Olam Hazeh. So Vayafetz is Vayifetz. Let me just have a look to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Vayafetz, right? So there's one L'Olam Hazeh. Umisham Hafitzim is Hashem is L'Olam Haba. Anshe Sedoim, the people of Sedoim, Ein Lam Chelak L'Haba. They don't have a Chelak L'Olam Haba. Shenemar, because it says in the pasuk. V'anchi sedoim roim v'chatoim l'Hashem ha'oid. Roim is b'olam hazeh, v'chatoim is l'olam haba. Aval oim din b'din. So it seems like what he's saying is that at least the anchi sedoim are oimid b'din. The anchi sedoim are oimid b'din. But Rabbi Nechemi Omer, elu ve'elu ein oim din b'din. They're not oimid b'din. As Rashi says, anchi dar haflaga. I'm sorry, Anshu Dei Hamabel, Anshu Sedoim. Ubechada Polud Rab Nechemi. He holds Sai Anshu Dei Hamabel and Sai Anshu Sedoim are Einoim Dimbedin, and he's only arguing by one because even the Tanakama agrees that the Dor Hamabel is Einoim Dimbedin. It's only the Anshu Sedoim who they hold are Einoim Dimbedin, and that Nechemi says even the Anshu Sedoim are not Einoim Dimbedin.
What does that mean? Einoim Dimbedin. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
They were already punished when they got killed, so they're not going to have to stand another judgment. But remember, we learned that the neshama and the guf all pass off the problem. It couldn't have been me, because without the guf says without the neshama, I'm a dead piece of meat. And the neshama says, what can I do? I don't even have a guf. So Hashem makes them both come together at Chisa Mesim, and when they're both together, then he could punish them, similar to the blind guard and the guard who couldn't walk. So what happened is the blind guard put the guy who couldn't walk on his shoulders, and he told him where to go to steal these good pairs. So Zok Gemara, Rabbi Nachman Omer, Elo Beilein Bedin, Shenemar Al Kain Lo Yakumu Rishoim B'Mishpat. The Rishon will not stand b'Mishpat. The Chatoim B'Das Tzadikim. The Chatoim will not stand by Das Tzadikim. So we dash in the pasuk. Al Kain Lo Yakumu Rishoim B'Mishpat is Zedor Amabel. The Chatoim B'Das Tzadikim Elu Anshe Sedoim. So they won't stand b'Mishpat. Omrloi. Einam Oimdim Ba'adas Tzadikim. It doesn't say they're not going to stand b'Mishpat. It says they're not going to stand Ba'adas Tzadikim. Maybe that means just another Mabah. I will Oimdim Ba'adas Rishoim, but maybe they will stand up to get punished. Meraglim, it's taken out of bracket, but it's interesting, so we'll learn it. Meraglim Ein Lahem Chelek La'Lam Haba Shneimar Vayimusu Anoshim Moitziei Diba Sa'aretz Ra V'Magei V'Luknei Hashem Vayimusu Ba'Lam Hazeh V'Magei V'La'Lam Haba. Dor HaMidbar Ein Lahem Chelek La'Lam Haba. The Dor HaMidbar doesn't have Chelek La'Lam Haba. And they're not going to stand judgment either. Shemar midbar zeh yitamu v'sham yamusu. Divi Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lezer Omer Alevu Omer Avada. They have Olam Haba. Because what does it say? It says Esvuli Chasidai. Please gather my Chasidim. Esvuli means gather them. Meaning there it's a misa miloshen esvu. Karshe Barisi Elazova. So Esav is mashma that I'm gathering them in. They're going to die, but Avada they will have Chisa base. Adas Karach Eina Sida Lalish, they're going to be buried down below, never coming out. Shenemar v'tuchas aleim ha'aretz v'tuchas aleim ha'aretz ba'olam hazeh. And then the Yoivdu M'techa Kol is la'olam haba. They're Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lezer Omer, that's not true. Aleim Omer in reference to the Adas Karach, the pasuk tells us Hashem meimis u'mechayeh moirit she'oil v'yoal. So Hashem will eventually take the Adas Karach out. Zok the head of Gemara. Tonu Rabbanan. Dor Mabel Ein Lahem Chelek Lahem Haba. Why? Shenemar v'yimach es kol hayikum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wiped out all that was living. Asher al pnei Adam. V'yimach es kol hayikum is referring to Elam Hazeh. V'yimachu min haaretz is referring to Elam Haba. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. But the Rebbe Messiah Omer loy chayin v'loy nidayin. They're not going to live Elam Haba, and they won't be nidayin, which is what our Mishnah says. Shenemar, our pasuk that our Mishnah quotes, Loyad Meruchi ba'adam la'olam. Loy din v'loy ruach. Dover acher, Loyad Meruchi means shaloi tehei nishmasan chayzeres lenidna. The neshama will not go back to its sheath, which is its guf. It's not going to come back into its guf, meaning it's not. They're not going to have tchisa mesim. Rabbi Menachem bar Yosef Omer, afilu b'shah shakadosh baruch hu machzer neshamas l'fkar mesim. Even when HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts the neshamas back into the mason. But what's going to happen with these people, with the Dor Mabel, is nishmasan kasha lahem b'gehenim. Their neshama that goes inside their guf is actually what's going to undo them. It's very bad for them. Shenemar taharu kashash tel dukas ruchachem eish toichlem. The when the neshama goes back into the guf, the neshama will act like an internal fire that'll burn the guf from within. Dora Mabel, go. They only became too haughty, which got them into trouble. Because they had it too good. What does it say about the great life that they had? It says, their house was peaceful from any danger, and they were not punished. The stick of admonishment was not upon them. The shore impregnated the cow, and there was no issue with the pregnancy. They applied parasi, and therefore the baby will born, shakel, and the mother will not become mishukelos, meaning the mother will not lose her child. So again, they were living peacefully, and their animals were reproducing. They could send their children out to play, just like sheep, and not be worried that they'll get kidnapped or hurt. And their children are going to dance. So there was peace and security. You didn't have to worry when you sent your child out to play. They would carry instruments, So it was a very happy, serene, successful life. If I'm not mistaken, it could be a chaf in the pasuk. The shadow which pasuk it's referring to, but I believe it says yichalu instead of yichalu b'toiv yameim. Their days will be finished with only good. Ucharega sha'ol yichatu. So let's see what the Gemara dashes this. Oh, so it's a question of which pasuk it's referring to. So their lives will be good and sweet. And in a rega, they're going to be taken to Shoel, the he garma. That's exactly what caused their downfall, all of the wonderful, easy life that they had. Because what did they say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when they were too comfortable? Get away from us, Rabbi Shloim. We don't want to know anything about Yiddishkeit. Ma Shakai, who is Shakai Kina Avzenu? Uma Noyel, who's going to help me? Boy, that I should engage with him. Amru, they said, Klum anu loy, kum trichen anu loy, el latiba shel b'shamim. Why do we need Hashem? We only need him to give us some rain. But you know what? We have naturally occurring resources that we don't need rain. Yesh lo naharos, umayanois, she'anu mistapkin mehen. Nature gave us whatever we need. We don't need Hashem.
Remember to the Chamas that the pasuk said.
The Gemara is going to reference that shortly. Chamas is going to enter the scene shortly.
No, okay.
What's a good day without Hamas?
Right.
So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "B'toiva sheshpati lahem ba." Well, b'toiva sheshpati lahem, with the very good that I gave them these beautiful resources. Ba machizanois. That's exactly what they're using to antagonize me, and therefore, uba anidon, with that same nature, I'm going to judge them. Shenemar bani hinini mevi es hamabel. I am bringing the mabel mayim. So you said you don't need me for water. You said you have other sources of water. You rebelled with water. I'm going to punish you with water. Rabbi Yosy Omer dar hamabel lo nisko el b'shvil galgol ha'ayin shedoyme l'mayim. The mistake that they made was galgal ayin. Galgal ayin means, Rashi says, that they looked upon themselves as they were very great. They saw that we're complete. They lifted their eyes up. So since they were so into themselves, they took the liberty of doing znus with anybody who they wanted to. Not only any person, any body, any guf, even an animal. Shenever nivku kol mayonos tahim rabba v'arubois hashemayim niftechu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu paid them back with water. Now, galgal ayin also refers to water because ayin is like ma'ayin. There's a lot of different shot of or b'mayim shedoyme legalgal ayin. Water looks like the eyeball. I'm not sure how. So Rashi touches, and ma'ayin comes from a very small place. Water surges forth from a small hole in the rock, similar to an eye which is small. But there's other Rishonim will learn an ayin rhymes with an ayin. It's a similar word. And they did aver with the word rabba, and that's how they were punished. Rabba kilkulu shneimar vayar Hashem ki rabba ru'asa adam rabba nidoinu shneimar kol mayonos tahim rabba. They were out of all the springs that opened up to flood the world. They were closed, but three stayed open. Which are those? Belua de Gadar, that's one famous spring. The Chamei Tveria, which we all know about. Veiner Abasi de Bir. Now, the Mefarshim tell us we know that's not true. There are hot springs all over the world. So what this means is that these are the three hot springs that remained active in the Eretz Yisrael region. But of course, there's others as well. Now, Yosifun described to us what this blue together was. There was a stream of cold water that came from a spring, and there was a stream of very hot water that came from the spring. And when they were mixed together, they created tremendously healthy properties of refuah, very healthy waters, and therefore, and when they mix together, they become very healthy.
And we
And
learned people didn't get sick until what, the Yaakov or something?
But these could be different types of sicknesses. Right? These could be maybe there's sicknesses, there's chronic conditions, there's so many different things that could be referring to. The other question that they ask is, what do you mean people didn't get sick? The Gemara tells us that Avraham Avinu had a special rock that he wore around his neck that healed people. So I thought nobody got sick. So there's different pshat in that. There's one pshat that it means spiritual sickness, and it's referring to Avraham Avinu being the car of them. But even according to the pshat that it's a physical sickness, there could be different types of sicknesses and different types of conditions that were around and that weren't around. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. I think I saw in the art scroll that the reason why we needed these springs is it used to be that there was only one season, and therefore the air and the climate were perfect, and therefore people didn't need refuah. But once the Nabal happened, and the world turns on its axis and there's seasons, many times throughout the year the temperatures aren't that great, which causes health damage to people, and that's why we need these springs to rectify that health damage. The people bred animals chayis with behemoths, behemoths with chayis. V'hakoil al adam, and all animals the men bred with themselves. So adam al hakoil. So they either brought male animals on female humans or vice versa. Amar Abba bar Kahana v'kulam chazru chutz mitushtim. All the animals stopped doing these types of things, except for an animal called tushlami, which is an animal that still mates with species that aren't the same as theirs. Now, there's a big shaila. Did they actually physically go and force chayis to live with animals and force animals to live with people? So there's a pshat that says that we didn't physically force them, but the way man treats the world and behaves impacts the bria. So since man was being mizana in a terrible way, it had an impact on even the chayis that they were also being mizakal l'shein amina. Similar to, I think the Chavetz Chaim said that if we're going to speak lashon hara here in Radin, they're going to be Machal Shabbos in America, because if we lower the cheshivas of Torah in the world, it has great impacts everywhere else. The end of time is about to come. You see how bad Chamas is, stealing. They were over znus, they were over terrible affairs, but that didn't seal the deal. That created a wrath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it didn't seal the deal that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should erase everybody. Now, some of Farshim will say that if there was only this znus and other affairs, then people could have done tshuva, individuals could have been saved. But once there's Hamas, now the whole world is going to go. Everyone's going to get killed. Until they stole from each other. And therefore, it says, Hamas come lamata Russia. Hamas it's like it became a being, it became its own identity, it became like a stick of a Russia. I don't want them, I don't want their money, I don't want anything to do with them. Hamas itself stood up like a stick. And stood in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hamas itself said, whatever Hamas is a concept. Hamas said, I discussed it by Klal Yisrael. Actually, not Klal Yisrael, by mankind. Even Noach had a gzardin that he should get killed in the Mabel. Shenemar v'loi enoch b'hem. Tana devei Rabbi Shmuel. Af al Noach nechtach gzardin, but he got saved because of the shemot zachein b'nei Hashem. Shenemar nichamti ki asisam v'Noach. So Noach is right there near the nichamti. So Noach was included in this as well. Although we read it v'Noach matzachein b'nei Hashem. This is the Yinochem Hashem Kiyos as Adam Ba'aretz, which is also right after the Noach Motachem Ben Hashem. It says the Yinochem Hashem Kiyos as Adam Ba'aretz, so it's referring to Noach as well. Yosef Dimi Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yafa Sisi. I think I did a good thing that I wiped out the world by the Mabul. Shetikanti Lahem Kavaris Baretz. I buried them all. I killed them all. I think it's a good thing that we rid the world of their corruption. My mashma. Where do you see that Hashem said this? Now, Vayinochem, the Pashup Shad, how you're going to want to learn it is he regretted. But no, Vayinochem means he justified it. Where do you see that? Yosef told his brothers, you didn't do a bad thing by selling me. Look, the best came out of it. Now I can support you in the hunger. So Yosef was justifying what they did. So that could be Pshat and Vayinochem. Hashem justified what he did. But Vigadarmi, it's Lo Yafa Sisi, Shekitat, Shetikante Lahem, Forest birds. It's not good that I wiped out mankind, because that's not justifying, that's surely regret. Eila Polish Noach is Tzadik, Tamim Hay B'Daraisa. I'm Rabbi Yechanan, B'Daraisa v'Loi B'Daraisa Acher. In his own generation, compared to who was out there, he was a good guy. But if he would have been in a good door, he wouldn't have been anything special. If even in a door that was so corrupted, he managed not to be influenced, he would have been even better. You had a barrel of wine. It's not such a great barrel of wine, but it's surrounded by chaimitz, which smells sour. So amongst the vinegar, this wine smells distinctly different and distinctly better. But a regular piece of wine, a regular barrel of wine like this, no one would be so excited over it. It wouldn't have such a great aroma. It's a jug or a flask of some type of very sweet smelling, pleasant type of bisamim. That was in a very smelly, dirty place. You could even smell a good smell, even if it's surrounded by foul smells. But if you're in a nice smelling place, surely this smell will feel even better. The Baruch Hu wiped out everything that was on the face of the earth. Humans did averes. What did the behemoths do wrong? Imagine someone makes a beautiful wedding for his son. And before the wedding, his son died. What will the person do? He'll get rid of everything. Why? What did I make this whole party for? Did I want to marry off my son? Now that my son's not around, throwing everything away. I only created all of these creatures to service man, but man doesn't deserve it. And that's why he killed the behemoths and chayis, because he only made them for mankind, and mankind is not around him. We learn from there that the fish didn't die. Now the question is, if the water was very hot, which we're going to learn it was, how did the fish survive? So the article brings down from somebody that although the mayonis that opened up the water that covered the land was very, very hot, but the waters in the ocean still remained a proper temperature. It's light on the water. To kulo chalkas baretz, their chelik in the land will get cursed. What do you see from this pasuk? Noach HaTzadik was giving them musar. Asu tshuva, do tshuva. If you don't do tshuva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe alechem es hamabel umekape niveloschem al hamayim, and he's going to make your corpses float on the water kizikin. That's what means kalu pnei mayim. Your corpses are going to be floating on the water if you don't do tshuva. Shenemar kalhu al pnei mayim. Whenever somebody wants to curse, they're going to use you as a curse. Now, where do you see this is happening? There's something called a mishapara. If someone backs out of a deal If someone uses kinyan kasef and they didn't do Mashicha, and then he backs out, he gets a Mishapara. What is the Mishapara? Mishapara midar hamabel. Also, l'spareya from someone who's not Aymed b'diburai. Why? Because the dar mabel. The dar mabel was also because of chamas, because of dishonesty. Zok Gemara, lo yifna derech karamim. They didn't turn to the way of the karamim. Malamed, you know what it teaches you? So you mefanim derech karamim. When Noach was trying to give him Musar and sit down and have with them a serious conversation that they should fix their ways, they said, I'm busy working now on my vineyard. I don't have time for you. Amar Loi, they told him, what do you mean you're telling me Hashem was going to destroy the world in 120 years? If he's actually capable of doing it, why doesn't he do it right now? Amar Lahem, Noach said, you know why Hashem is not destroying the world now? Because Predachas Yeshli, Loitzimikem, Mr. Shalach is alive. And I don't want to make him die young. I don't want him to see the mabel, but I don't want him to die young. So I'm going to wait until he dies at his natural age, at his natural death, and only then am I going to bring the mabel. Im Kain, loy nifne derech kramim. So Rashi's claimer, loy nosev loy nifne derech kramim. If that's the case, we're not going to clean up our act. We'll let it go the way it is. As Rashi says, we're not going to clean up our act. We're going to continue on in our corrupted path. We're ruining the roads, we don't care. The Kutim Uberkonim, we're talking about roads that are obstructed with thorns, just like the pathways of a kerem. It's full of thorns that stick out from the trees in between the rows. So that's what they said. We're going to stick to that. We're not correcting our ways. Darish Rava, it says in the pasuk, Leficha lapid boys, a torch of fire, la ashtosh shanon, for those people who are Rashi shanon the choshvin machsheves royos, but for the person who have bad ideas. You know, the people who don't want to do tshuva, they have these bad ideas and they rest on their laurels, they're going to be burnt with torches of fire. Okay? What does that mean? Noach was giving them Musar. Rambam would tell them, he would tell them harsh words, harsh like flames of fire, like torches. And they were mavazahim. So lapid boys, his Musar boys, they were mavazah. Amrullah, they told him, Zokain, oh, Altishke, Teva Zulama, why do we need this Teva? Amrulahem, so he told them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe Aleichem as a Mabel. Amru, they asked him, Mabel Shema, a flood of what? What are we going to be flooded with? In Mabel Shal Eish, if it's a Mabel Shal Eish, we have natural defenses against Eish. Yesh Lanu Dover Echad V'Alisa Shema. There was a Chaya called Alisa that was fireproof, so we could protect ourselves with fireproofing compound. Vim Shalmayim maybe, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu thinks he's going to flood the world. Ibn Aretz maybe, if he's going to have water spring forth from the ground, will create plugs. Yesh lanu hashashi yeshal barsel. We have steel plugs. Shanu mechapen by this Aretz will cover the holes and will plug the holes so we could prevent it. Vim in Hashemayim maybe, and if Hashem is going to make a rain down from Shemayim, no problem. We have big sponges that can absorb tons of water that will save us. Yes, lanu davar va'akav shemay, raman la'akav shemay, and they're big sponges. Amar lahem Hashem. So Noach told him, "Fools, what you are! You think you control nature? Who maybe mibein ikvei raglechem? He could bring it from in between your legs, in between your heels. Shenemer nachay l'mayad. What does it mean? Rashi has two pshatim. Either b'shich v'zera shalachem yachalum chayzeskem. Hashem could make the mabel come from the place of your shich v'zera. He can flood you with shich v'zera if he wanted to, or literally, he could make water come out of your feet. Zog to Gemara weiter, which leads us in to the next memra that the Gemara is about to say. Tanya meimei amabel koshem kishich v'zera. The waters of Mabel were hard like shich v'zera, meaning they were hot and they were very thick. Roischin v'oven is what Rashi says. Shenemar nochain l'mayadi regel. It's like the mayadi regel, which is referring to zera, which is from regel. Amar Rab Chisda, Beroischin Kilkalu Ba'avera. They did their averas with heat. Beroischin Idoyu. Sivacha Yeshuka Mayim. And how do we know that means to cool off? Vazam v'chamas hamelach shecha. Okay. Zog to Gemara. I assume Beroischin Kilkalu, meaning the heat of the Yetzer Hara, because they were being mizana. I'm assuming that's what it means, but let me look to see if that's what he says. Yeah, the fire of Znus. It says after 7 days, so what exactly are these 7 days that was before the Mabel? Mishuselach died, then we had to sit Shiva for Mishuselach, and only then could the Mabel come. Even being masbid tzadikim will also prevent Peronius from coming. Dover l'shivas. What does it mean? Sheshina alei makadosh baruch hu say the bereshis. When it says vayi l'shivas hayamim, it doesn't mean there was a 7-day delay. The mabel happened right away. But vayi l'shivas hayamim meaning the shivas shemei bereshis that Hakadosh Baruch Hu created the world with. He changed those rules by the mabel. He changed the rules, and the reasoning for some of Farshim say is they thought they can use nature to protect them. Hashem said, I'm going to show you that you can't even rely on nature, because nature is a nace. It's just a nace that happens every day. I can change that in an instant. What changed? Up until that time, since Bria Sa'olam, I'm sorry, during the Mabel, the Chama would rise in the west and set in the east, the opposite of what was happening until now. So that was Mavahit L'Shiva Seyamim. It ended the period of time where the world was following the Shiva Shemei Bereshis, meaning the sun will rise from the east and set in the west. And from here on, from the Mabel, in the Mabel, Hashem changed it that the sun should rise in the west. First Hashem said, I'm giving you 120 years. Once that 120 years expired, then Hashem gave him a small zman to say it's imminent, and now you have 7 days. L'shivas hayamim, it means the shivas hayamim referring to Gan Eden. She'te'iman me'ein olam haba k'dei sheyedu ma toiva monument. Because Baruch Hu opened up the world that they should feel what Gan Eden feels like, and then Hashem punished them. Why? Because Hashem wanted to show them what they were missing. Gavaltik. And there are those who say that's the great life of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. But Hashem gave him a glimpse of what the Eden is like, what Elam was like, so that they should know what they're missing. Dover l'shivas hayamim she'atimam me'ein olam haba. He had them taste olam haba. I did that right because you did about Torah monument. Mikola behema Torah tikach shiva shiva. Noach was instructed to take 7 from each kosher animal, ish v'ishtoi. Frank the Gemara, ishish l'behema mi'isla. An animal doesn't have a mate for life. Maybe the yonya does, but most animals, the female will mate with different men every season. So what do I mean ishta? Ishta means a dedicated wife. It doesn't mean it's really its wife. It means it means animals that weren't mizdabek l'she'enan mina. We know how in the world would Noach know which animal was mizdabek l'she'enan mina? Amar Chisda, very simple. He brought it in front of the teva. Kol she'ateva kol tasei, if the teva took him in, v'yadu shall have the mevayer. That's how Noach knew that there was no aver done. Kol she'ateva teva kol tasei, v'yadu shall have the mevayer. Hashem made the animals come to the teva. Hashem only made animals come to the teva that were not animals that were involved in the aver. Asei lecha tevas atse goifer. What type of wood is goifer? Ma goifer. It's a mavliga. I don't know what type of wood this is. These are the types of wood that the teva was made out of. Soyar, tasel teva. The teva has to have light. You have to have nice jewels in there. That will light up the teva. There was a window. The teretz is the window was for sure not for light, because as we said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu suspended the rules of nature, the mice operations during the midbar. So it was probably dark outside the whole time. So the window wouldn't have given them light. They need something that can internally generate light, and the window is just made to send the bird out. You should make the roof sloped until it reaches only an amma. With a sloped roof, the teva would be able to sustain the rains because it would drain off. Tachtim, shniim, ushlishim tasa. There should be 3 stories. Tana, we learned tachtim lezavel. The basement was for the human waste. Emtsoyim is lebehema. That's what behema state. El yoinim, the top floor was la'adam for man. But Yishlach has a oyrev. He sent out to oyrev. Omer Rishlakish Tsuva Nitzachas Hashiva Ervel Noach. The oyrev, the raven, had a very good argument to Noach. Amaloi Rabach Sainani. Your Adon hates me. Knows HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates me. And you hate me. Why? Rabach Sainani, because we're not Torah Shiva, we're not Tameim Shnayim. He's discriminating against me. Since I'm a Tomei species, there's only 2. So she doesn't like me. So I thought, I need to accept it. But Addison is saying, and you also know you hate me. Why? Because you're sending me out. What if something happens to me? If you send out a tahar and something happens to it, you have plenty backup. But if you send me out and something happens to me, my species will be permanently extinct. Shata maniach mimin shiva, v'shalech mimin shnayim, in bakei bisar, chama, isar tzina, lo nimtza oilam chazu biri achas. If something happens to me, the sarcham or sartzina takes me out. Is the world not going to be missing a species? So you don't like me, you don't care. Or then you got personal. Shemela ishti ata tzorich. Maybe you are hitting on my wife. Omer loy. So Noach told the Oyrev, Russia, you're a Russia. But muterli, neserli. I didn't even have relations with my wife, who's mutter to me. But neserli, like Kolshagain, surely a bird is also to me. Surely I'm not going to have any type of intimacy with a bird. When we know the natural, how do we know that it was usher for them to have relations with the Teva? The Chsivu Basal Teva, when it lists off the people, it doesn't list off couples. It says Ata uvanecha, you and your children, and then v'ishtecha, and then in the shevanecha ita. So we're not going in couples. But except same in the Teva, Ata v'ishtecha, uvanecha and the shevanecha ita. You see, they're left as couples, meaning from here on in, once they leave the Teva, they can now act as a couple. In the Teva. Shloisha shimshu b'teva. 3 did do tashmish in the Teva wrongfully. V'chulam laku, and they all got punished for it. Kelev the dog, v'oirev and the raven, v'cham and chum. Kelev was nikshar. A kelev is always tied up. He's always restrained. That's not a nice position to have in life. Oirev, right. And the oyrev doesn't reproduce. They don't have intimacy like every other animal. The way by oyrev works is the oyrev spits the zera, the male spits the zera into the female. So it's a non-contact. It's a non-contact activity, although there is an exchange of body fluids, but it's a non-contact type of relationship. And I guess that's not typical. It's not fulfilling. Maybe with contact, it makes it more fulfilling, and that's why that was his punishment. And Cham Lakabayrai, his skin got a pigment, and that was his punishment. He says, "Vayishlach es hayoyna me'itai." Then Noach sent out the dove, the yoyna, lirai sekelo amayim, to see if the water went down. Amir B'Yirmiyah mikan shedirason shal oifos tahar min tzadikim. You see that birds, it says birds of a feather flock together. Kosher birds like to set up near tzaddikim. So it's common for near tzaddikim, if you have a bird's nest in your house, it's probably a kosher bird. When the bird came back, he had a leaf of a bitter olive. Amar Belazar, Amar Yodim L'fnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yehem Zainaisi Merur Kazayis Umusur Miyotcha. I'd rather get this olive leaf from HaKadosh Baruch Hu by flying out and getting it, even though it's bitter, rather than have to rely on Noach to feed me. While you Mesukan Kidvash shouldn't have the best of meals, but I'm reliant on a person to feed me. My mashma, The high tariff, listen to Mizaynihu. How do you know that the word tariff? Tariff means a leaf. Why are we attaching it that it means sustenance? So you see the word treif, tariff is associated with parnasa. They went out in the teva with their families. So the more saying that the different type of animals stay together with their group. Meaning when they were in the teva, they weren't fed by Noach putting food down for everybody all together. Rather, everybody was separated. But v'loy heim. So let's have a look at Rashi. Everybody was individual. Everybody was separated. Every animal ate privately. Amar Chana bar Bizna. Amar le Eliezer l'Shem Rabba. Eliezer Eved Avram asked Shem ben Noach. It says, so the question is, Aton, Heichon, Havyusin, how did you manage? So there's one shot, since everyone was fed separately, it was a lot of work to prepare separate food for every animal. How did you survive? How did you manage inside the table? As Rashi explains, since everyone animal ate separately, they didn't have a common dining room. How were you able to orchestrate that? That must have been very hard work. So Zok Gemara, what did Shem answer? He was there on the teva. So he answered, you're right. Tsar Gadol Hayolanu b'teva. It was actually a very difficult, taxing time for us in the teva. And there are those who say that Noach needed a kapara, and his kapara was because of the difficulty that they had in the teva. If it was an animal that would normally eat by day, we fed it by day. And if it's normally fed by night, so we really were working 24 hours. There was an animal called a zakisa. My father Noach didn't know what is the menu, whatever he offered this bird, the bird that I wanted. So Yom Echad, one day, Yosy, he was sitting, v'kapali rimoina. My father was slicing up a pomegranate, novel telatrina, and the worm fell out of the pomegranate. Ochla, the zakisa ran and ate it. So now Noach realized that the zakisa liked worms, so he used to prepare moldy food so that there should be worms, so that this animal will have what to eat. That's how Noach cared about each individual animal. He would mix grain with water to help it rot. When it came wormy, achla, he served it to them. Zoktamar Ari Ishta Zinse. The Ari, it's brought down. Noach didn't bring it fast enough, and it injured Noach. So after that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that the lion should have fever. And when someone has fever, he doesn't need so much food. He can eat much less. He can go on without food. Fever could nourish somebody not less than 6 days. A minimum of 6 days, a person could survive without food when they have fever, but not more than 12 days. Okay? Ishta Arshina. Okay, no, Ishta. Arshina, Ashkechina, an Arshina was a type of animal. Ashkechina Abba, my father found him, the Gani Bisafno de Tevusa. He was set up in a private little area, and he was there by himself. Amar Lei, so my father asked this animal, Loi Bas Mazoini, don't you want food? You're hiding away. Don't you want me to bring you food? Amar Lei, to this bird said, Chazizach, I'm watching you. Davas Terida, you're working so hard. I'd rather not eat. I don't want to make you have to work harder. Noach was so grateful for this kind word. You should never die. And like sand, I'll have a long life, meaning the animal will live many years. And the Rashi tells us that the word choil is also the Hebrew word for the word arshina for this animal. Zogt Gemara weiter. Amar Abchana bar Levoy Amar Shem Rabba Eliezer. Shem ben Noach asked Eliezer a question. He also like Malchem Mizrach Umayrev. When all the kings attacked you, how did you deal with them? Amalei, I'll tell you what happened. Isaac Hakadosh Baruch Hu Avram. Hakadosh Baruch Hu took Avram. And he put Avram on his right side. And Avram was throwing earth, or we were throwing earth. And they turned into swords. Gili, we threw stalks of hay. Vavagiri, they turned into spears. Shenemar Mizmar LeDavid Nu'um Hashem LaAdoni Shev Liyamini Ad Ashes Oivecha Adon Merglecha until their enemies were reduced to be my footstool. How did it happen? Uksiv Miher Mimizrach Tzedek Yukreyu LeRagloi Yidin Lefan of Goyim Umalochem Yered. In other words, the other nations and enemies will be subdued by us. How? Yidin Ka'afar Charboy Kikash Nidov Kashtay. Okay, we're going to run through this interesting story, famous story. Nachem Ish Gamzu, have a ruggle. He had a policy. The Chol, the Hava, Sol Kalei, whatever happened to him, he always saw the good in it. Amar Gamzu little type. Yom Echad Bo Yisrael L'Shturei Dorin LeKeser. Klal Yisrael wanted to send a gift to the Keser. Amri, they said, who will be our messenger? Who will be able to deliver? V'hadiman Nishader. Who should we send it with? Zokt Gemara, let's L'Shader by the Nachem Ish Gamzu. Let's end it with Nachem Ish Gamzu. Why? The Malumad B'Nisamu. Since he's a big man and he has Nisim, so if anything goes wrong, it'll be taken care of. So Kimat al-Diyura, Nachem Ish Gamzu came with a treasure chest full of gold and silver to take to the king. He came to the hotel. Boy Slamevis, he wanted to spend the night. Amalur, they asked him, Ma'ikavadach, what do you have with you? Amalur, he said, Kamavilna Kargal Kesa. I'm bringing a gift to the king. So they understood, who knows what type of expensive jewels are in this box. Kamabalila, they came in the middle of the night. Sharina Latif Sifte, they untied his package. Vishaklu called Avagabe. They took all the gold and silver. But Umalanu Afra, they filled it up with earth. He was unsuspecting, Nachem Ish Gamzu, and he continued on, not realizing that what he had in his bag was earth now and not diamonds. Kimat Lasam, when he got there, Ishtakach Afra. They opened it up and they thought it was Afra. So everybody else would have panicked. But Nachem Ish Gamzu said, Gamzu L'Toiva, this is good. Let's watch how this is going to unfold. Omar, so the king said, are you guys crazy? The Jews are making fun of me. They're sending me a bag of earth. Right away, they wanted to take Nachem Ish Gamzu to get killed. What did he say? I'm not worried. Omar Gamzu L'Toiva, it's going to be good. Also, Leo came, he dressed up like one of those servants that were there, one of the officers that were there. Amalu, he told the king, don't throw this to me. This might not be a joke. Dilma Hay Afra Avram Avinu. Maybe we know the history books. We know what happened. It's recorded where Avram wiped out a whole army by throwing sand. Maybe this is that sand. Before you dismiss Nachem Ish Gamzu and the gift from the Jews, maybe this is something that's very valuable. So what did they do? So Dilma Hayafra Afra Avinu, who the Havashadi Afra Havacharbi Gili Havagiri. But they checked it. Vashkahu. Vashkahachi. In fact, that's what it was. So the king realized that it was a very precious gift. Anyway, there was a city or a country that the king wanted to subdue and annex and take over, but he couldn't. They were too powerful. So what did he do? He threw that stone, that earth, that magical earth that he got from Nachem Ish Gamzu, and boy, he won that war so quickly. So he was so happy with Nachem Ish Gamzu and the present that Nachem Ish Gamzu gave him. They took him to the main safe vaults of the king. Amri, and he told Nachem Ish Gamzu, Shkoil, take the nichalach, whatever you want. Malya l'sifta, fill up your bag. I'm sorry, take whatever you want. Malya l'sifta dahava. So Nachem Ish Gamzu filled up his whole bag with gold. Kihadar, when on his way back, he stayed at the same hotel. Also, he came. They asked him, "Hanich to Yurei, my Malka." How did that gift work out? Because they knew what happened. They wanted to hear what happened. Amalu, what do you mean? The exact same bag that I removed from this, that's the bag that I delivered to the king. Whatever was in there, I gave. Shakli inu. So they figured, hey, there must be that the earth from our yard is special earth because that earth was the earth that turned into spears and swords. So you know what? Let's fill up another box of this very special holy earth and let's bring it to the king. Shakli Inu, they brought it to the king, and of course it didn't work. Only Nachamish Gamzu's worked because it was Alpinais. So Katlinu Lahanach the Yurei. Those people, the villains of this inn, the king killed them because it looked like they were playing with him. They gave him earth that was useless earth. Okay, Gavaltik, Baruch Hashem, we were zeichen to finish Daf Kuf Ches, and tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Kuf Tes.